There's a new badass in town. This is Kia's new Seltos, and well, it comes with a whole host of features, including a completely new engine, the 1.5 turbocharged petrol, which gives you about 160 PS of peak power. Then there's a suite of safety features as well on board, thanks to ADAS Level 2. And then there's those cosmetic changes and feature additions that make it a completely different car from what it was before. This is the GTX variant, the GT line GTX. I'm driving it right now on the road to Painch. Let's see what this SUV is all about. And we're rolling off in the Kia Seltos. This is version 2.0, the updated Seltos. Let me take you through those mechanical bits which we weren't allowed to do before. And that's the 1.5 turbo petrol engine. Now this is offered in the GTX and other variants as well. But what's important is that in this version that I'm driving, it's mated to the 7-speed dual clutch transmission, the automatic transmission. So yes, shift quality is quick. But what about the engine? So let's talk about that 1.5-litre turbo petrol engine. 160 PS of peak power, comes in at about 5,500 RPM, which is fairly high up the rev range. Even the 243 Newton meters of torque comes in pretty high. So effectively, if you need to overtake, so even if the kickdowns are pretty quick, thanks to this 7-speed DCT transmission, the engine doesn't feel quick enough. The Kia Seltos offers level 2 of ADAS, and this brings several new features in terms of safety to this entire package. So you get lane keep assist, you get smart cruise control, which is essentially adaptive cruise control, you get pedestrian collision avoidance, and several others. Here is how lane keep assist works. We've set the button on, so the vehicle, the Seltos, stays in exactly the same lane and does not meander from it. If I had to change lanes without using the indicator, you hear that warning buzz? Well, those are auditory warnings that come from the Seltos to warn you that you're changing the lanes in the wrong manner. If I had to put the indicator on, perfectly fine. In addition, you've also got blind spot monitoring. So objects in your rear view mirrors that aren't visible, that fall in your blind spot, well, the Kia Seltos will detect those. And in case you're changing lanes, turning from the left to the right lane, well, the Seltos will give you a warning if there is a vehicle oncoming and is in your blind spot. Smart cruise control will essentially allow the Seltos to propel itself forward to retard speed on its own. It does not require driver intervention. Once a speed is set, the Seltos will maintain that speed. If an object comes ahead of you, like a slow-moving truck or a bus or another car, the Seltos will slow down to maintain a safe distance from the vehicle ahead. Once you're able to overtake that vehicle, it will on its own accelerate and pick up pace, moving to the speed that you've set it at. On these fantastic highways between Nagpur and Painch, smart cruise control works quite nicely. Cruising down the highway at about 80 to 120 kilometers an hour, like we are just now, the Seltos is at its most comfortable. Don't push it too hard, sedately take it through its paces, and this is a car you can enjoy. We've just driven the Seltos through Nagpur city, which has a mix of both concrete and bitumen, tarmac roads. And the ride quality on that was surprisingly a little bumpy and a little firm. Though Kia claims that efforts have been taken to soften the suspension, to make the ride quality more compliant, more comfortable. The design aspect now, though, in my opinion, has been dulled a bit. While the previous generation's tiger nose grille and the signature LED lamps and all those graphic elements gave it a very muscular stance, a very attractive face, this current generation Seltos takes a little time getting used to. The front-end design looks a little chaotic. The grille has changed and it stands out in your face and not in a very pleasant manner. The rest of the silhouette on the Seltos stays the same because this is essentially still the previous generation vehicle. Though with that grille, of course, a lot has changed at the front end. The interiors are fairly familiar. We've seen a lot of these elements on previous generation Seltos, and some of them have been carried forward as well. But there are a few additions as well. You've got a new LED panel right behind the steering wheel, which is a single panel that houses both the infotainment screens and the instrument cluster. Sharp, clear, readable displays. You get climate control for the front and the rear passengers. You've got the panoramic sunroof and a lot of other comfort and convenience features that offer this SUV pretty good value for money. There is one thing about this interior that I quite like, and that are the seats, especially the driver and the passenger. And there are two reasons for this. First, these are ventilated seats, which means if you're living north of Gujarat, Rajasthan, Delhi, Haryana, and all those hot states, ventilated seats are an absolute boon. The second, if you look at the backrest, it's got this ribbed pattern both on the backrest and the seat squab. And this gives it that very orthopedic feeling of comfort and stability. I believe it makes every drive quite comfortable. But then again, the Kia Seltos has got something that will prevent you from falling asleep. It's got attention assist, which has got sensors and cameras in that instrument console right behind the steering wheel that will detect your face, and if you are falling asleep, it will tell you to go and grab a coffee. That, however, cannot be done by the Seltos. You have to go and get a cup of coffee yourself. And that is where connected technologies comes in handy, because you can now tell the Seltos to direct you to the nearest coffee shop. You see how this cycle works? Cars are getting smarter. It's only a matter of time before the idiot behind the wheel is replaced. I've currently stopped to evaluate another of the ADAS safety suite features, and this one is going to show me certain blind spot warnings and of course parking assistance as well, where in the blind spot, if you do not notice a car coming in, well, ADAS will set off audible warnings and visual warnings to ensure that you're safe inside your car, that you don't open the car door in the wrong manner, that you don't drive off when there is another car coming in your direction or trying to overtake you in a parking spot. Well, all those warnings will go off thanks to ADAS. Let me just quickly try that out and see how it works. There are a couple of features that we're going to assess right now. One of them is the door opening warning. If there is oncoming traffic in a parking lot and you try to open your door, ADAS will warn you there is another vehicle coming towards you and that it will be unsafe to open the door at that point in time. If you were driving out of your parking lot and there was another vehicle coming in the same direction as you, ADAS will again stop the car, warn you that there is another vehicle coming. It could be in your blind spot, and ADAS will essentially identify that vehicle and tell you to stop or rather to take precautions or to be careful when you're moving out of your parking slot. We're now going to see one more feature from the ADAS suite of safety features, and that is pedestrian collision avoidance systems. Effectively, the Seltos will recognize that someone has walked across the street and will apply the brakes if you are not quick enough to respond to that emergency circumstance. The Seltos will brake by itself and stop the vehicle. Now, this works in multiple conditions at speeds above 5 kilometers per hour up to about 65 kilometers per hour for pedestrians. If it detects a motorcyclist or another car, it could go up from 180 kilometers an hour. Even then, it could apply the brakes in an emergency situation and bring the car to a halt. I have now moved over to the 1.5 litre Seltos with the IMT transmission. This is a 6-speed IMT transmission, and IMT is called Intelligent Manual Transmission, which essentially means there is no clutch pedal and you can change gears in this manual transmission without having to use a clutch. It's not very difficult to do, but there are some pros and cons to this. What are the pros? Well, of course, if you are driving in urban conditions, this kind of transmission is just as effective as an automatic transmission, simply because your left leg can stay idle, not exert itself, having to push a clutch pedal in all the time. But at the same time, you get higher fuel efficiency. The disadvantages or the cons of this are that this isn't the most responsive transmission, and sometimes you can forget to do that. You definitely need to downshift. It's easy to forget that you're in a higher gear and that the car is not an automatic. So all you have to keep in mind is that you have to consistently shift, which means your left hand still does a lot of the work. Now, if you are on the highway, this transmission, well, it's a little tricky using this. If you want quick, responsive shifts, you have to stay on the throttle pedal while shifting gears. If you release the throttle pedal, the turbo doesn't kick in quick enough for you to get those quick responses and instantaneous bursts of acceleration. Now it takes forever to build up speed. Well, not actually ever, but it is definitely slow. If I had to keep the throttle constant, and the new Kia Seltos, well, has been very attractively priced. Prices begin at about 10.89 lakhs for the absolutely base variant, which is a 6 manual transmission or the HTE variant, and this goes all the way up to about 19.99 lakhs for both the diesel and the petrol variants, which is not bad value at all, considering that at 20 lakhs ex-showroom price, you're getting a fair amount of features, you're getting a fairly good engine, you're getting decent ride comfort, a good looking car still, and well, a lot of value that Kia is associated with now in the country. So overall, a good package, certainly one to look forward to coming out in the market very soon.